Good morning, this is Rabbi Shlomo First here to see Savanakshi. We're in Yerushalayim Mir Kodesh. This is our second shir. We're in Mishnah now. We're in 2 weeks, Bez Hashem, in the Shavuos. So we're learning about this Yom Tov here in the Mishnah Kaf Tzadi Hey. That's 6 days. Yeshiva Savanakshi is located in Yerushalayim Mir Kodesh on the Kodesh Sikh Yaakov number 6. In the Beit Knesset of Chanukah Yeshivas, located not too far from the central bus station, so please, if you're in Yerushalayim, you can walk from the bus station to the cab, drive if you have a car. If you're coming for good starts, please join us. We'd like to help you make sure visit to Eretz Yisrael and Yerushalayim with as much Torah as possible. Kaf Tzadi Hey Sif Beis. Yisrael, would you like to read it first?
Ketzira means cutting, Tchina means grinding, and Tzira is...
Just like as Butzir, that Butzir is usually referencing to grapes, right? Reference to grapes. The Butzir is the collection of grapes.
With Tzira.
That was base.
Tzira is grinding.
This is base.
Tzira?
Tzira is harvesting grapes.
Harvesting grapes, grinding grapes?
Yeah. Well, no, you have Ketzira. Ketzira is harvesting, usually wheat. Ketzira is usually harvesting wheat. Techina, see, it's parallel. You have here Ketzira v'Techina. You kaitzer, you harvest the wheat, and you grind the wheat. B'tzira, you harvest the grapes, v'sochet, and you squeeze the grapes. So it's a double. There are 4 malachas that we're talking about here, but there are 2 in parallel, right? Ketzira of wheat, cutting down of the wheat, harvesting the wheat, and then grinding it. And then B'tzira, you have, yeah, exactly. And then you have the B'tzira, the harvesting of the vineyard, and the Schita, the squeezing of the grapes. Okay.
What's Tzira? What's the harvesting?
B'tzira is harvesting grapes, yes. No, but Seder, is catching, is trapping. That could be animals, fish, birds, right?
Even though it's a malacha, it's oichel nefesh, it's malacha's right to oichel nefesh, for food, no like the food you eat, and after Asur Chachamim forbade us to use malachas.
Right, so you have these types of malachas, which are, we'll see what the Mishnah is going to explain about these. Even those things are done for the necessity of eating, right? Harvesting wheat, grinding it, harvesting grapes, squeezing them, catching things, trapping things. All these things are necessary for the food that's supposed to be enjoyed on Yom Tov. Nevertheless, Chachamim, the Chazal, the Rebbeim, came and ushered it. Meaning, Midoraisa is mutter, because you're doing it for Tzachol Ochel Nefesh, which is the food needs, and for the needs of Yom Tov. So therefore, Midoraisa is in fact permissible. However, Chazal stepped in and said, no, you can't do these on Yom Tov as well. And we'll see why. In general, these things are done in large quantities, right? When a person's going to harvest, he's not going to harvest a kilo of wheat, and grind a kilo of wheat, right? Likewise with grapes, he's not going to just harvest a liter of grapes and squeeze a liter of grapes. And likewise trapping, a person's going to go fishing, he's going to catch, well, he's not going to just catch one fish. When you usually go out to fish, it's a project. You're not going to just be satisfied with doing fish. You're taking that time out to go fishing, you're going to usually do a lot of it. So that's usually something which is done a lot, and it's done, therefore, for more than the current needs of that specific day. It's made to be stored away. Whatever you do, you do, but you store a portion of it. And in fact, the minimal amount you actually use right away, right? So therefore, these are things which are, although they're made and necessary for food intake, for eating purposes, nevertheless, since they're not usually done for that particular day, Chazal said you can't do it on Yom. Let's see the Mishnah. That will be in Sivkat Yud Aleph.
Ketzira means cutting, harvesting.
Harvesting wheat, yes.
What disha means?
Disha is dashing it, trampling it, threshing it.
V'ha'kada
that is sifting it.
Sifting.
Right, so like there's a question about sifting, there's a question of sifting flour, right? In fact, you can bake on Yom Tov. If you want to make a cake on Yom Tov, you want to make a challah on Yom Tov, in fact, you can bake on Yom Tov. But the sifting of the flour, we'll learn about that specifically, about the sifting of the flour, may in fact be forbidden. So you have to sift it previously. Yeah. And there are two siftings. There's the initial sifting, which is basically done to get out the clumps, and then there's a resifting that you usually do to add air into the flour, because if you have air incorporated into the flour, it helps the dough process. Yeah.
Technical question.
Sure.
This is where we are, Yud Aleph.
Yud Aleph, right.
Why are we not here, Yud Aleph?
Okay, this Yud Aleph is referring to the Yud Aleph that's here in the Mechaber, in the Shulchan Aruch.
Right.
And this Yud Aleph is a smaller, in the script, in Rashi print, as they say, that Rashi script, Yud Aleph, is referring to the Shar Tzion, below.
Oh,
Right. You see these correspond to the Rashi script, this is Rashi's script.
okay, so
That's
I
it.
see,
Yes.
thank you.
Okay, good, no problem. Okay, go ahead. So it's Kasira and also Disha, threshing, and Rekida is sifting, Akiyah Gavd, and all these things, because these things are usually done, again, not in small quantities, it's usually done in large quantities, so therefore you're not supposed to do these things with the Rabbanan on Yom Tov as well. Yud base in the Mishnah Berurah.
If it's chita means squeezing, what's we mean to say? This chayt ha-peres, l'haytzim lahem shmana, v'enai. To
Right.
squeeze the fruit to take out from them the shmana means the fats and the juice.
Oil, the oils, you're talking about, you think, Bitsir also, it's referred to olives. You want to harvest olives and squeeze them for oil, and also grapes for yain,
Or
wine.
wine. La achila b'yom tov, for eating on Yom Tov.
Right, so even if you want to do this in order to eat it on Yom Tov, it's still forbidden.
Also from the midrabanat asa, the min ha-Torah, min ha-Torah means any malacha, the min ha-Torah means min ha-Torah, kol melecha shehi b'lecha nefesh mutar. Any work that's done for eating is allowed.
Right, so according to the Torah itself, any local nefesh is mutter to do on Shabbos, on the Yom Tov, excuse me. Al Chachamim,
It says Ela.
yeah, Ela Chachamim.
Ela chachamim asu t'goyim shehein avodah rabba. To go in honey. But the chachamim forbade these things which involve a lot of tircha, a lot of work.
A lot of work. These things in general, first of all, it's not something you can do in the privacy. You have to go out to the field to harvest, right? You have to go down to the river to fish, right? So it's not only, number one, is it's a whole project to do it, and not only that, usually it's done in mass. Because it's a whole project, you don't go out and do it just for a small amount. You do it for a large amount.
This is a concept of schita.
Mm-hmm.
My understanding is that schita, squeezing in and of itself, is not a malacha. It's extracting the inner part of the produce from the outer part. That's the malacha. And this would be a tolda.
Well, okay, well, you have schita, there's such a thing as called mafarik. If you take something out of it's growing in something like a pod, and it has seeds in a pod, you're taking the seeds out of the place where it grows, that's called mafarik. Right? Similar to that is squeezing. There are basically three categories when it comes to schita, which is a tolda, if I'm not mistaken, that when you take the liquids out of two primary fruits, meaning grapes and olives, that's in Isser Midaraisa. Because the primary creation of grapes and olives is for the wine and for the oil. Right? So that's in Isser Midaraisa. Right? You have an intermediary category of fruits that are pomegranates, for example. Pomegranates are many times used for the liquid, but that's not their entire primary purpose for the liquid. Right? Then you have other fruits which are in general not usually used for the liquid, like an apple. Yeah, apple. Apple classically is eaten, right? But they do make cider they do make juice from it. You can make juice from any fruit, right? But in general, the two classics, grapes and olives, are which is the deraisa, intermediate categories, and now it can shift. The place can talk about that some fruits can shift from being to the third category, which is really not something which is used for juice, to the intermediate category, like let's say oranges. You know, oranges, there's quite a lot of oranges that are marketed, grown, and harvested specifically for juice. They have specific brands, types, strains of oranges which are made specifically for juice. So that way, even though an orange maybe classically, at the time of the Gemara, let's say, was not a intermediate category, but now those types which are made for juice, but let's say you take a tangerine. Not too many people squeeze tangerines, right? Tangerine is, it's whether it was naturally made or was genetically bred, you know, it peels very easily, its sections come off very easily, it's very easy and simple to eat, and it's made for basically for eating, right? You wouldn't take a tangerine necessarily, slice it in half and start squeezing it. That's very rarely you would do such a thing like that, right? But so that will probably remain in the third category, which on Shabbos in general they always usher. It's only a question if it's usher with the rice and with the rabbanim. Right? On Yom Tov, Schita we're seeing here, we'll have to get into Schita. There's some that it's a very borderline category as to whether or not you can actually do squeezing oranges on Yom Tov or not. The big machlokas, a discussion in the question whether you can squeeze oranges on Yom Tov. In general, probably not.
What about toothpaste?
That's simply squeezing something out of a tube, which is not a issue. You have to take it out of from papyrus, something which grew from a tree.
So squeezing a tube of toothpaste is not a malach.
Not a malacha, but there are other problems with toothpaste on Shabbos. Squeeze, smearing it, and things like that, applying it to your teeth. In general, toothpaste is not to be used on.
Having to do with what is it, smoothing?
Yes.
It's a different issue.
That's a different issue entirely.
So squeezing in and of itself, per se,
The
is
process of, let's say you have mayonnaise in a tube, right? You know, there's certain types of, especially the English, they market mayonnaise in tubes. Yeah, exactly. You have, you know, it's not a problem opening it, right? It's been previously opened, so actually the actual squeezing thing is not in itself a problem.
You brought up that there's oranges made for squeezing for juice.
Yeah.
Does the bracha still say shehakol, or because they're made for juice that becomes a...
Also a question of the place. Some advise taking some of the pulp, and you know, some may advise taking two brachas. They have to know which place you're going to be dealing with.
We have.
What's your, what would they tell you? No, you never know.
You just mentioned,
Yeah.
I don't always hear people speak of the concept. I mean,
Sure.
I knew of the concept,
Yeah,
there's
yeah.
Tropicana farms in Florida, it's
Yeah,
all made
it's
for...
100%,
that's right,
you know,
juice, it's
Tropicana
not juice.
juice.
So I just wondered, you said 100% juice, so if they were grown for that, it's the bracha change, I just wanted to know.
This is a question. Okay, we'll have to stop here, we'll continue tomorrow.
It's produced by a guy, right?